Hey, this is Rogue. All right, today we're here to talk about defining your playstyle in Deadlock. Now, what does that mean to define your playstyle? And this is something that I think even the pro players don't do enough. There's people who I think have a really strong understanding of like, oh, I have a really high rank or a high elo in whatever game, so I'm like a good, well-rounded player. But that's not really it. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Like even if you think of a business, you want someone who's a specialist in executing to be the chief executive officer, and you want someone that's really good at finance. You want someone who's really good at marketing, right? And you want all of these people to be specialists in their roles to work together as a team. Like you don't want 7 generalists all in charge of something, and you don't want to like if you're in one of those situations, you want to find the right person for the right job, basically. So let's talk about what it means to define your playstyle. Like, how do you do it? Why is it important? Those are great questions. I appreciate the enthusiasm. You're in the right place. All right. So when we're looking at defining your playstyle, some people think like, oh, I play as like a tank or a sniper or support or whatever. That's not quite it. Sometimes people think it's like the characters you play, like, oh, I main Abrams, I main Vindicta, but that's not it either. Some people break it all the way down to talk about their builds and things like that. For example, like, oh, I'm like bleed shiv versus gun shiv or something like that. Still no, like that basically is more descriptive, but not what we're looking for. I would define your playstyle as what motivates your decision-making when you're on the server, right? So if you were to take, let's say, the same character, the same item build, and the same exact team, like, create 1,000 parallel universes and put different people in that seat to play out that match, what is the specialty that you bring in that case? Like, what makes your play there different from other people's play when putting the exact same character items in game and stuff like that? So yeah, we're talking about what motivates your decision making on the server, and I would say that defines your playstyle. So, for example, are you a player that's more passive or more aggressive? Are you like tactical and strategic, like sharp in terms of like the metagame, or are you someone who's all aim, no brain, like frag out like crazy? Because once you start asking these questions, you can realize what causes you to thrive, like what things can you do really well, and if you're allowed to do these things, then you succeed the best. It also helps you learn what makes you underperform, right? Things that are outside of your playstyle are things that you're not so good with, right? Thinking about a game like Counter-Strike, if someone is a supportive in-game leader and suddenly they have to use the op and get a whole bunch of hit a whole bunch of them with it or something, that's not one of their strengths in terms of their playstyle, right? So basically having these well-defined helps you kind of get yourself in position to play your A game and bring your biggest strengths to the game. And yeah, I think people are kind of hesitant to say that they have weaknesses or that their contributions to the team can be boiled down to only a couple categories. But I would still urge you basically to go through this example because no one is good at everything. I mean, again, these games, like once you get like a high elo or something like that, you think I'm a good player and someone who's lower elo is a bad player. But like, if you think about your games, you're going to be paired with someone who gets like way fewer kills than you on your same team, on the same team as you. Does that mean the other person doesn't deserve to be there? No, that just means that according to their play style, they bring a different set of values to the game, right? Maybe they're really good at farming or they're really good at coordinating, like calling plays and things like that. You never know, right? So in terms of the way that, not you never know, you can know, and I think you should know. So basically, I'll put you through a little example here. So what I want you to do as homework is to sit down and try and define your own play style. And what you're going to do is just use 3 adjectives and that's it. So for me, I would define my play style as aggressive, vocal, and proactive. So what does that mean, right? That means I'm really well suited to teams that play fast, teams that leave me room to be the primary or the secondary caller, and teams who are interested in buying into my kind of tactics that I'm calling on the fly, maybe if it's not even the textbook best case. So that also means that like when I'm this type of player that works well in these types of contexts, I want to work with a team who's, understanding that I'm going to look to create fights, right? With me being aggressive, I'm kind of putting myself a little bit further forward where I'm like kind of like searching and destroying, where like if I can find an opening, I'm in the position to capitalize on it. I'm not someone who's more passive where I'm going to be like with full HP far back in the back lines ready to go wherever I'm needed, but that's not the strength that I bring to the team. Next, being vocal, it's really important for me to have agency basically over what we're doing as a group and having, again, that strategic aspect to it. and rallying people behind these ideas. And finally, the proactivity, again, like I work really poorly on teams that are really passive and like that aren't interested in trying to win the game, you know? So I need teams that basically rally around me and are interested in trying out the types of things, in the creating basically winning situations. Now I want to give like a counterexample here and why defining your playstyle is so important. So I'll give the example from previously in my esports career. I come from Team Fortress 2, right? And so I play medic in Team Fortress 2, and a rival medic is Blake, who is phenomenal, is really like such a wonderful rival to play against, because I would describe him using the exact opposite playstyle. So Blake, I would say, is passive, silent, and reactive, right? So when we're looking at watching Blake play, he's being very passive, right? So he's not taking damage, he's not getting caught out. He's basically staying alive and keeping himself in smart positions so that he can contribute to the team over time whenever the team needs him. Second, he is more silent, so where I need to basically like consume the resources of our airtime on the mic, Blake does not have to do that. For the people who are actually doing damage, actually going in for fights, he gives them that room, and like he'll be fine even without having to like call people in to bail him out using his push to talk like me. Third, he is reactive, right? So rather than creating opportunities on the server like me, what Blake will do is see what's happening and respond to it in kind, right? He'll take in, you know, the play of whether it's going well or poorly, and always kind of have that plan of what he should be doing next, and is very like self-sufficient in that way too, because again, he's silent and passive enough where he's kind of starting out in the right place, and if he needs to back out, he'll just back out on his own without needing to say too much. So the important thing to think about here is that these are descriptive and not prescriptive, right? It's not like defining a playstyle means you're typecast, like I'm always the person who always needs to do this thing. Like for me, for example, sometimes I'm looking at, like I'm playing with a team where, yes, I want to be vocal, but someone else is making the calls I would want to make anyway, and they're really thriving doing that. Great, I won't make those calls. I get to chill out and support them wherever I can. Sometimes my aggression will just, you know, translate to feeding, you know, like I'll try and be aggressive and then get punished for it 4 times in a row. So that basically points out to me where I'm aware that my playstyle is to be aggressive. And if it's not working out, then I need to make an adjustment. Maybe I'm behind in souls. Maybe I'm not like teaming up with the right people at the right time. So basically, even though these I mentioned are my playstyle, there's still room for you to operate outside of that playstyle. I think the difference is when you have this deep understanding of your playstyle, it sets you up for success and helps you see when, for example, an aggressive play for me would be the right idea. I'll find that faster than someone like Blake. But I think, you know, even when I talk about Blake's case of, again, being descriptive, not prescriptive, Blake has and will make game-winning calls. I've won games by playing passive and just staying alive. But I think the difference is by having this playstyle so well defined, you can count on me to look for that opportunity to win the game. You can count on Blake to stay silent but stay alive for whenever someone else is ready to find the win in the game. So yeah, that's sort of what it looks like to operate in a team environment with this playstyle. So again, whether you're putting a team together, whether you're trying out for teams, you want to say, hey, yes, I main these characters, but here's my playstyle of like the specific things that I succeed in and I do well with. As another example, I gave the example of like running a business before, and you'll find that same thing in hiring. For example, people think like, oh, if I study and get my degree or something, then I'm ready to be hired by a company because I've reached the bar of what is expected of me to get this position. But that's not quite it. Once you get a lot deeper into the hiring process, you see that people aren't really looking for like a generalist, like someone who's pretty good. I mean, sometimes they are, but for very junior positions. Like if you're a team that's just starting out, if you're at like the lower level of competing or a lower level ELO, then yes, you should work on the basics and work on the fundamentals and understanding. But when we're talking about, you know, going up in rank in the business, right? When you're talking about being a vice president or a chief something officer at a company, even again being like a high level person who like doesn't do as much of the decision making, whatever it is, you have to specialize. Like when people are hiring, they're hiring because they want someone to do something in particular. If you show up and you say, hey, I am a rock star at doing exactly this thing that you need, then they're a lot more excited to work with you because you fit the pain point that they have. If instead you say, hey, well, I'm a generalist, I can do whatever, but I'm not particularly like, it's not my specialty or anything, that's a lot less inspiring. So Yeah, like kind of think of it that way, basically, when you're working with a team. And again, whether it's at the competitive level, whether you're in matchmaking, whether you're in public games, you can kind of feel out basically with your team and say, hey, team, here's the strengths that I bring. Even for me, like talk about being vocal, I'll say hey to the team and, make some casual comments while we're just loading in. That way people are used to me being vocal already, Little things like that help me succeed. And so people are used to hearing my voice, used to like, I'm not just someone who decided to say something 8 minutes into the game. Instead, they know they can count on me to continue talking throughout the game. Great. So I wanted to give another example where when you look at these adjectives, again, whatever you pick for you, you'd be really surprised where you can start finding these adjectives outside of the game. Right, so when you're looking at just a Deadlock game, we'll get to that in a little bit, but even looking outside of a Deadlock game, you'll notice across different esports, across different disciplines entirely, you'll start finding basically that same fire that fuels you and inspires your decision-making. You'll see it in other people. To give an example for myself, I mentioned aggressive, vocal, proactive. I'm not a great chess player, but I really like watching it and seeing players play. And so my favorite chess player is Daniel Naroditsky, because I think you might describe him in the same way. He's aggressive, vocal, and proactive. So he's constantly more that aggressive side of looking for opportunities he can capitalize on and being more ready than his opponent for those openings. Second, he's very vocal in explaining his thought process. And third, he's proactive, talking about how he's basically leveraging his own play style to set up these types of environments where aggression solves the problem. The way that manifests on the board is he'll constantly be looking for sacrifices, right? To sacrifice his pieces, whether maybe he'll sacrifice a piece, he'll sacrifice an exchange. And then what happens is he loses material deliberately. He starts on a disadvantage, but that basically gives him tempo, time, and a number of moves, where as the opponent is cleaning up from the shock of again, something the opponent wanted to happen, but they have to respond to it over the course of a couple turns. He uses that time to dial up the chaos, right? And to really turn up the heat basically in that chaos of if I create one opening and really blast open this position, I can keep hammering that as a chess player to convert that into basically a win, because whereas the other player has seen sacrifices sometimes, Daniel Naroditsky lives in the sacrifice world, right? So when I think of that, how that relates to my own play, I think, yeah, it's exactly the same, right? When I'm on the server, I'm kind of creating proactive scenarios with my team where I'm kind of orchestrating us in a way where if an opening appears to us, we can explode fast because I'm that aggressive, I'm ready to go. And I'm on that vocal side of helping us kind of navigate and coordinate when we're in that space. So I'll do the same thing. I can charge myself in, even as medic in Team Fortress 2, or as I don't know, someone like Kelvin in Deadlock, to say, I'm going flying in. I'm going to turn their heads around. I'm going to make them look the wrong way. While they're looking at me, they will kill me, but we'll get 4 of them in exchange for just losing me. I'm going in 3, 2, 1, this lane, whatever. So you can feel how similar it is and what an overlap there is. So look across, even when you're look across different disciplines and see if you can find that outside of Deadlock too. But now when you're even watching someone's demo over in Deadlock, you want to, number one, think of your strengths and your play style and see, well, as I'm watching this person, what same motivators of those 3 adjectives do they have inspiring their decision-making, right? So I'm watching to see if someone has something aggressive in a way that's more unique to me that I can hold on to, or if someone vocally, kind of orchestrates something in a way that I haven't done before. And again, with the proactivity I mentioned of map rotations being a big push and pull of something that I'm passionate about. So I can watch for those things, but you also want to watch out for the opposite, right? So when I, for example, watch a Blake demo from Team Fortress 2, I'm seeing, wow, normally I would make this type of aggressive, proactive vocal decision. Blake's making the opposite. For me, how does that sit with me? What if I were to try that? And usually it feels uncomfortable, or it's something I'm not interested in practicing and, redefining my playstyle from scratch and saying, for me to be a completely perfect player, I have to learn to do these things. That's not it at all. Instead, I should keep doing what I'm really, really, really good at. But what if I, add 5%, 10% of this, the grass kind of being greener on the other side? What if I take a couple blades for myself and give it a whirl? Again, you'd be surprised, just kind of understanding how far someone's playstyle is from you. You can now learn from them in a more unique way. even just thinking here, I remember I was like mentoring a while ago, and in a demo review, I was explaining to someone like, your aggression is very strong and is adding a lot of value to the team, but you're doing it kind of too haphazardly. Like you're getting aggressive in a situation where there's not really any benefit. So what I want you to do just before you're about to go for an aggressive peek for a corner that may or may not need to be peeked is to think, how good is it for me to be aggressive right now? Like I'm really good at being aggressive. Will this add the most or will this not really add much? And in me saying this, I'm like, oh my God, wait a second. That I needed to hear that advice so badly. Thanks for, I'm like thanking this person now for their, as I'm going over the review. So yeah, that kind of like level of understanding like where your strengths lie in terms of your play style. You can adjust, right? You can do more of the things you're good at, or you can shore up a little bit in the categories where you're not as good. But again, I wouldn't say that you need to be the perfectly well-rounded player who's good at like every single play style in the world in order to be a top level pro. That's not it at all. Finally, I'll give another example of like, with these types of play styles. If I'm someone who tries to get aggressive in outer lanes, I might not be like, sometimes in the game we'll be losing or on the back foot, and I'll say, I'm going to get aggressive in these outer lanes. They need to be fixed, but I don't really have the aim to do that, or I don't have the play style where like I can just like juke someone and kind of understand the total timing of when they're going to respawn and show up for me. So instead, my strengths lie in grouping up with the team. So I am even saying it out loud here to help drill down for myself that yes, my playstyle is telling me to be aggressive, but I can't really succeed in this way that's not vocal and it's not proactive. It's just raw aggression that's not really contributing anything. Or like maybe I get one wave, but then I go down for it. Or I can't contribute to an actual team fight that my team was prepping for that I could have helped contribute to in advance. So those again are cases where like someone else who's really good at maybe like solo laning or has great aim and things like that, or great timings would do better in those situations than I do. It's not like I'm bad at that. Instead, it's like, oh wait, I could have added so much more value somewhere else, and instead I'm adding it here. So if I understand my playstyle this way, my team understands my playstyle this way, they can engage with me a lot more and set me up for success as I set them up for success. And you're kind of finding basically the right place, the right time of all of the things that make you the player you are. And how to make your decisions on the server the best. So please take a second. I urge you, if you want to come up with those 3 adjectives to define your play style, throw them in the comments. Why don't you? I love to see. And you'd be surprised as well. Like, don't honestly like just write 3 down quicker, because you'd be shocked how often they're correct right away. Kind of the stuff that comes to mind, you might need to tweak one, but you're probably right off the bat. And if it doesn't feel right at all, then that's a really strong indicator that that's not your play style, which is really helpful too. Yeah, I hope that leveraging your playstyle, understanding who you are and how you do things will help you win more games and play better as a group when you're playing a game like Deadlock. All right, let's take a picture for the thumbnail. How's that? All right, cheers. Thank you so much. See you.